And on this Christmas Day, we want to provide a present to you, listener and viewer, and that is all of your questions.
Yeah.
And hopefully some helpful answers.
Before the policy staff was able to rain on our parade, it was already out.
This is why you always ignore policy people. You should stuff them into the lockers. It's like your job is here is you got some
We're
ideas.
gonna get so
and they
many
give you a
angry
gift.
letters.
Oh, I know. They all listen. No, listen, I think it goes a long way. I love it. I would keep it.
What I like about it is when it goes a week too long and you start to look like Jack Sparrow from Pirate of the Caribbean.
That's funny.
It's very funny when you got like the soul patch and then also the mustache.
Yeah.
It's really something.
I've worked at Coca-Cola for 21 years.
We're delivering Dr. Pepper from our brand new facility in Dallas, Texas.
We're really proud to still make Pepsi products in America.
You don't need a college degree to work here, but I put 4 kids through college by working here.
This is a great place to work with great people and great American brands.
Grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants, they all depend on us.
We deliver great paying jobs.
We deliver beverages people love.
We deliver for our community.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. You're either catching this between present opening and all the family gathering stuff, which we all love and we all enjoy, but you do need a couple of minutes for yourself, and we're here for you at the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial because we don't take breaks.
We don't. And on this Christmas Day, we want to provide a present to you, listener and viewer, and that is all of your questions.
Yeah.
And hopefully some helpful answers.
Yeah, so we talked about, through the better part of a month, how we urged you to just put in random questions that we would answer here on the Variety Program. It's a new thing that we've done at the end of the year, but we've gotten a lot of talk about it. And so we thought, well, it's a good time. It's a good time to do something like
It
that.
is, and it's a perfect time if you're listening to this at 5 a.m., if you're one of those dads out there who's still wrapping your wife's present. You got up early.
Building the horrible...
That is so tough, and I'm so grateful that I have a wife who understands. I just can't wrap the thing. I can't
You put it in a bag with the tissue paper?
I can't even do that. I can't even do that. I'm not even going to do that.
Hold on, you can't put something in a bag.
No, because I like...
No,
because like you have to find the tissue paper where that's stored, and then like you have to find like a gift, and I don't want to do that. So what I do, and this is an approach, gentlemen, feel free to use this. Is I'll get the present, and then whatever the bag it comes in the store, I leave it right next to the tree, and I say to her, your gift is in that bag. If you look at it, it's on you. If you don't look at it, if you want the surprise, it's on you.
What if the name of
The
the store
choice is
is on the
yours.
bag?
I believe in individual freedom. Sometimes it is.
This is Smug.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it'll say Williams-Sonoma, and it's anything that they got there. You know it's Williams-Sonoma. I'm not going to lie to you.
This is like Smug's version of Don't Touch a Dish.
It's right there by the tree, and you're welcome. If your curiosity overtakes you, hey, I tell her, I was like, if you want, you can enjoy it right now. It's up to you. All the choices are up to you.
You know, it's very thoughtful of you to get a gift because I would think that
The brooch.
I would, exactly.
You could go full brooch.
I've definitely had some terrible gifts in my life, but I would think that Smug, you'd wake up in the morning and be like, "Merry Christmas, I'm still here."
Yeah. That's a good take. I should try that
Santa will
one.
be here all day.
He just puts a bow on his head and he's like, "I'm your gift."
Right, exactly.
Congratulations,
These are
everyone.
great ideas, gentlemen.
And then his mom's there in the corner nodding along.
Yeah, she's
Yes.
like, that's exactly
This
right.
is the gift I've provided.
This is my boy.
Yeah,
She's the best.
He's also my gift to you.
They're not wrong. They're not wrong.
No, that's why there's always sort of an adversarial relationship with a mother-in-law for every wife out there that's listening. All right, so let's just jump right into this because a lot of good questions out there. We're going to do a couple of parts of this. We're going to get to one today. But we'll get to the first question. The first question, will you please give us a short bio on all the guys?
This is from Heather Kirby, by the way.
Yeah, from Heather Kirby. I'm a latecomer, followed you over from Megan Kelly, and I don't know where your experience was gained. Though I can hear it in everything you say. Love your show. Keep up the great work. All right, so I thought maybe the best way to handle it. It's been a while since we've done this, and we've had couple million people that have not joined us at the beginning where we described why it is that we're qualified to talk about such things, because we actually believe the qualifications in talking about things does provide value. We don't need to trust the experts, right, Smug?
We often try not to and encourage you not to. At least I do.
But it's nice to have a general background in what it is that you're discussing on a day-to-day basis. So, look, I think I should just pose this to all of us because we all come from different places and do different things. Johnny and I have worked together the longest, but that's not where his career began. We started working together, I think, in January 2007.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like a long time ago now,
Yeah.
and that was in the Republican leader's office and some lean times in Republican politics. Also had a financial crisis to navigate. We were both in communications.
Sure was right on the heels of a huge blowout for Republicans in 2006. We lost majorities in a big way in the House and Senate. But that's actually not where I started. I started out as an intern and a driver for my local congressman in Ohio, of course, Cincinnati, of all places.
Yeah, weird.
Worked in the House for a little while, and then from the House, I worked in talk radio. That was kind of my press secretary for talk radio.
The thing is, you're such a classy guy. I'd never expect you to be in the house. You know what I mean? Usually that's like just dredges the society, the absolute animals.
House is a wonderful place. It's the people's house. It's where revenue bill starts.
In the echelons of where you start in Washington, D.C., a driver in the House is about as tough a spot as you can get into.
But he's such a team player.
Well, the thing is, you come out of college, you have a degree. I have a degree in business, but so I get this degree and I start driving my congressman around. And for a minute, I was like, wait a minute, I went to college and now I'm a driver. What am I doing? But over a very short period of time, I was like, I am learning so much more driving and listening and interacting with all these people that he was around than I would ever learn in any other job. And it's so for that first job, it's always about what can you get out of it? What can you give back?
Totally.
You can't beat yourself up because you're starting on a low level. That's where everybody starts.
And also for you, that must have been just exciting. Like Henry Ford had just developed the automobile, and you already figured out how to drive one of these things.
The Model A. It didn't have air conditioning. He wasn't wild about the fact there was no air conditioning in my Model A.
He walked out front and gave it a crank.
You get a little crank and you get going. Good old Ashbrook.
Yeah, but that was part of it. You have to learn how to fix an engine and everything that goes along with it. So that's where I started, and Josh and I started working together in the Senate in 07.
In comms.
Yeah.
And you were the talk radio guy. And I remember Smash, right from the very beginning, had a personal relationship with all the hosts. That all they wanted to do was hire him. And we worked together, and I was like, God, we can't fucking lose this guy. He's like the guy that's got all the ability to talk to the talk radio hosts directly, the producers directly, and give them information about what we're working on. Without him, there's like no real way to get information flow. And we started working together all the way back then, but we had to make real lemonade out of lemons at that
rough.
point.
It was rough. George Bush wasn't all that popular in the last 2 years of his second term. Senate Republicans weren't all that popular with the base. But you work your way through it. You learn a hell of a lot in the process.
And also, like, when Ashbrook discusses things like, here's the only time you'll get a journal writing a bad thing about a Democrat is when another Democrat stands to benefit. His understanding of how the media works and stuff, this is like 20 years. He's cultivated these relationships and this understanding of media. So, like, when you say, like, I want to know your experience and how it's like you're getting 20 years of in the trenches wisdom. So I'll joke with him and I'll be like, you're journal buddies, but
Such a good point.
Dude, he knows it cold.
So I'm glad you raised that because, look, an opportunity that we shared was in this office. It was in the Capitol. And neither of us, I don't think, understood how it was that press worked fully in any real way. We were hired to do that. But, like, this was a learning experience. It was like a real bet on the come.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a
that's
real
the,
bet.
you know.
The thing was, Holmes was the staff director in that operation, and he was a rarity in the United States Senate in that he had an extensive campaign background that he brought to the Senate. And when you're dealing with the typical Senate staffers, some of them worked on the campaign and then went to the office, but some of them went to law school and then they're in L.A. and then they're in L.D. And the ones that go to law school, it takes them a little while to understand the politics because they're thinking in terms of legality and what they learned in law school and applying that. And what he learned on the campaign trail is immediately applicable in the chamber in a way that other Senate people don't always know. So there are a lot of senators who are sending out press releases that are like single-spaced, unreadable, uninteresting. And the way that Holmes always looked at it was like, okay, how do we make this interesting to the audience? Who are we talking to? We're talking to real people. They don't believe a single thing that's coming out of our mouths. We have to have, everything has to be cited. Everything has to be perfect. And if it wasn't creative, it didn't matter because you were just like everybody else. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we stood out was the creativity, the campaign background.
And you see that DNA in the show.
Yeah. I mean, look, it followed us everywhere, but I remember Smash very early on sort of graduated out of the talk radio situation in that it was limiting for him. He always kept it. In fact, I think to this day, keeps great relationships with talk radio people, but he had so much more bandwidth. And I remember thinking, like, we got to put this guy in front of people. Because, like, you know, our experience collectively, we joke that we go to parties and, like, you can't drag his ass out.
Nope.
Yeah.
Everybody knows him.
We call it with the sprunger.
Well, he's our golden retriever.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to contribute. You just have to listen.
So he just goes out, like, and if you take him to a cocktail party, he's there to listen to your deepest, darkest secrets.
Well, don't give away.
And then he
talent. He gets people to talk.
No,
and then he trades
Give
them.
it away.
I do not trade.
I'm just kidding.
I don't trade
Give it away.
No, he's a lockbox where he has to be, but I remember thinking, like, dude, this guy's got a lot of talent. He's personable as hell. And there was these, what they call the Ohio Clock Corridor, which is where all the reporters are basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday through any given week in the United States Senate. And any TV that you see in your news broadcasts, or at that time, any sort of front page news that's printed in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whatever, was all in this area. So all the reporters were just literally standing in this place all day, every day. An incredible captive audience for somebody who's in PR. It was like, all you got to do is go and talk to him. And I was like, what the best asset we have is this cat, because he can go talk to anybody. And like, lo and behold, within, 15 minutes of the suggestion, this guy's out, and all of a sudden, like 2/3 of the reporters are like, hey, what's that guy in your office? I want to talk to him again. He seems like a really good guy, down-to-earth guy. Built these relationships back when we knew we were getting a raw deal out of the mainstream media. They were never like pro-Republican. They were always like very, very pro-Democrat. But if you worked it hard enough, you could sneak something past the goalie every once in a while because of the developed relationship. And that guy literally is the reason why you heard of Obamacare being shitty. He's the reason why you heard of the first Obama stimulus funding turtle tunnels and crazy shit like that. There is no other reason why the vernacular of that era came to public consciousness other than John Ashbrook
I remember hearing about the what was it?
Cornhusker kickback.
Well, this is where I need to stop you guys, because Holmes is actually an incredible writer. I know that you guys know this. I don't know if anybody listening to this really understands how talented of a writer he is. Like, he could write novels.
The only knock on him is that he's
good,
he's
bro,
left-handed.
but okay,
I am left-handed.
He's left-handed.
He's not that good. You created the Cornhusker kickback.
No.
Smug
Smug is trying to cause problems here because Holmes actually came up with that term.
No,
he came up with the
didn't,
Cornhusker
bro. It was John
kickback.
Ashbrook.
Louisiana
He came up with
Purchase.
the Louisiana
Heather Kirby,
Purchase.
if you're listening, I need you to understand. John Ashbrook created Cornhusker kickback.
Judge came up
We
with
celebrate him for it.
all of these terms. The guy's an incredible writer, and so
But we started a conveyor
It's easy to
belt.
sell something like
We
that.
started a conveyor belt of communications, which was like very different than anybody was doing at the time, which we understood that there was a whole bunch of different places that we could go to disseminate messages. You weren't just going to like put out a press release and hope that people cover it. Where the policy people would come to me and say, hey, dude, there is this massive Medicaid giveaway in this bill that goes directly to Nebraska because they need Ben Nelson's vote. Like, what are we going to do about it? They're like, we should say this is a huge medical problem, and it's 6-9
Subsection C.
Yeah, right. And I was like, how about you just call it the Cornhusker kickback? And they're like, does that work?
They're like, I don't know if we can do that. And Holmes is like, we have to call it this. He sends out an email to every Republican he knows and says, this is called the Cornhusker kickback. And everybody's like, oh, hell yeah, this is great. This is brilliant. We're definitely doing it. So before the policy staff was able to rain on our parade, it was already out.
This is why you always ignore policy people. You should stuff them into the lockers. It's like your job is here is you got some
We're
ideas.
gonna get so
and they
many
give you a
angry
gift.
letters.
Oh, I know. They all listen too.
Yeah.
No, but he would give
Well,
me
policy people
the
are
policy
important.
people
They're
would
not
give me
people.
that.
Don't listen to them.
I would
they
throw-
all think they're so smart. Wow. If you're the policy guy, you've got ideas? We hire people for that around here?
In
I
fairness-
got
in
ideas.
fairness-
Don't listen to the policy people.
In fairness, the policy people in our shop absolutely loved
They did.
what he was saying.
They did. They got it immediately what we were trying to do but it was new. So they would give me this. I would throw a brand on. I would hand it to Ashbrook. Next thing I know, I'd read about it and then hear it on the evening news, because he would go out and sell it to these people. And we did it very early on, like in the first month or month and a half that we were working. And I was like, holy shit, like this actually, I mean, I'm watching like ABC at the time that was the leading news broadcast, like broadcasting our shit and with our vernacular behind it, and then getting like our senators to like, yeah, of course, this is a Cornhusker kickback. And I was like, man, this is game changing.
Yeah.
And the whole thing then worked through a conveyor belt where ultimately we got to Obamacare and everything else.
Did that feel like a drug, by the way?
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
And we were really young, dude.
No, I get it, but like that is, because
You never think you can make a difference.
right. And there's
Yeah.
so many people, young people I know, who are listening to this or watching it on YouTube, who are working on Capitol Hill, and they're grinding it out every single day.
Yeah.
Being like, what am I doing? And I'm writing another thing. And where am I going to see the change in what I'm doing every single day that I came here to make a difference?
Yep. Yep.
So like that had to feel
No, it was
amazing.
incredible because it was like your first real
Yeah.
entree into that. And, the way it worked through the years is we came up with all kinds of different gimmicks for different shit. And we're able to start getting a foothold and start planning the Republican comeback in some ways. And both of us left the Senate at some point to go work on campaigns to come back to do it because we were just trying to help the whole team.
Right.
But Smash was like the most selfless of any of them. And then he had a young family, of which he was incredibly attentive to, but also knew like the job was, this is not a job you take for the paycheck, right? And this was, I think, a bonding moment where, he and I were at like 3 a.m. during the Obamacare debates, like sitting there watching every single second of it in the hopes that we would find one single chink in the armor where we could take that fucker down. And that's like all we did, and we knew nobody was going to outwork us. And Smash was like the driving energy behind all of that. Like never.
And you
quit.
guys got damn well close. I mean, Scott
Close.
Brown wins in Massachusetts, and the world is turned upside down.
Yeah.
It was, one of the seminal moments this century of politics.
America's demand for energy is rising rapidly, and at a time when American families can least afford an energy shortage. But for decades, critical energy projects have been blocked, limiting our access to reliable, affordable American energy and putting America's energy dominance at risk. The solution is obvious. Overhaul the broken energy permitting process. Make it faster and simpler. Innovation, a strong workforce, abundant oil and gas. We have it all right here in the USA. Let's put America first and political agendas last. We can power our own country, create thousands of good-paying American jobs, and unleash American energy to be bigger and better than ever before. Because when America builds, America wins. Read API's plan to secure America's future at permittingreformnow.org. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
It's certainly memorable for us.
Yeah.
But, then we go back into a campaign context where we want to recover a Senate Republican majority for the first time since, 2005 in 2014. And Johnny at the time had about halfway through that cycle moved his family back to Cincinnati because he's got 3 really young girls, right? And family around him, and was struggling with stuff that like all of us would crumble over. But he is not letting anybody into any of that. He's just like driving forward, trying to do his job. So he's commuting back and forth.
How many tickets did you get? He likes to drive
Dude,
fast,
that is
folks.
insane.
On those trips,
That's insane.
I have
to
had
try.
my share of tickets. on those trips, fortunately, I don't. Maybe I got one.
Oh, come
Dude,
on.
Cincinnati.
I mean,
to
I was
DC?
in the car when you got a reckless driver.
Yeah, we did. This was 08. This was '08. I was going way too fast. We were on our way back, and it was like, oh, buddy. I gotta get home. I gotta get home.
He's like, they tell me I'm going to lose my license.
Yeah, it happened. That's what happens when you drive too fast.
Yeah. But like it parlays itself into 2014, which of course was kind of a seminal moment for all of us in that we had, both primary politics and the left coming after you full force, and we try to figure it out as best we can. And meanwhile, Smash is doing like the full commute back and forth. He's the first guy that would call me in the morning, the last guy I talked to every night. He's just like all in on all of it. But we figure we're like light-handed. Like we don't know exactly everything there is to know about information flow in this era. And we noticed that there was some shit that was happening online that was new. It was a total novel concept. There was a couple of groups that were involved that were incredibly proficient at organizing opposition to certain things, but then also incredibly proficient at pushing information that we deemed disinformation. And we wanted to know how we could figure this out. So we studied a lot about it, and we came to the conclusion that there was one asshole that worked over at FreedomWorks who was like chief amongst them.
Okay.
At all of this. And his name was Michael Duncan.
Back when he was cool doing disinformation.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
Hell yeah. Hell yes.
Yeah.
And his but he was young. He was out of school. He was working his ass off, but had like a natural understanding of the internet in a way that didn't exist in politics. I'm not talking right and left. I'm talking about politics in general.
What year was this? This was like Baby Duncan.
This was at the
like 2012,
onset of the
2013.
in the onset of the Tea Party. So
I'd like to think I'm super smart, but
this guy was like 20.
I also
He's like a kid. He's a baby.
I also just got kind of lucky because, I graduated during the financial crisis, and was working at FreedomWorks, and it was the sort of rise of the Tea Party movement. And you remember out of that 2008 Obama campaign, there was that Sasha Eisenberg book, The Victory Lab.
Victory Lab.
Yep.
yeah.
And so there was a lot of interest, I think, on the right in conservative politics and like, how do we win the battle online, right? And so here I am, like fresh out of college.
Hey, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like you guys were talking about earlier about faking it till you make it, right? Yeah. It's like I saw that opportunity and I was like, I need to learn everything about how this works. And in these days, we're talking like, 2010.
Yeah.
The best you could do was like buying a right rail ad on Facebook. They had just started allowing advertising on the platform. You were talking very rudimentary tactics in this thing, but because I just sort of by happenstance at the right time was there when nobody knew how it worked, like you had whatever budget you wanted.
Yeah.
And I was a kid right out of school, and it was like you if it's working, the budget is unlimited.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Is that it was so foreign to everybody in the space that if it actually worked, people were like, "My God, this man is a magician."
Yeah, and so I mean, in those days, my job was to make your jobs a living hell.
Right.
Yes, it was.
It was.
And you did an adequate job at all of that.
Sure
I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Handing boxes of tea to everybody, throwing it overboard.
Yeah, but during that moment in time, as all these people wanted to get involved in politics for the first time, the only way to scale services to those people was the internet. Like you couldn't do this the old-fashioned way with patch-through calls or teletown hall meetings. These people wanted information. They wanted to know how to show up at a town hall meeting and ask their congressman about Obamacare and things like that. And the only way to scale that was the internet. And that's where, me and many others came in. And then I went onto the consulting side.
And that's where we find you.
And that's
as soon as you got into the consulting spot, we were like, that's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the guy. And the reason, Smug, you'll appreciate this, the reason why that's the guy is not only because we knew he was doing all this shit that was like fucking up our world, but also organizing a larger good, which was the conservative movement, was that he was absolutely the only digital consultant that I'd ever met and have met to this day who I'd be interested in walking into a C-suite. There is not a single person that I've encountered to this day in 15 years of the digital era where you're comfortable sitting next to like a CEO of a major company and being like, this is my partner, he deals with digital. Because usually like they'd be like, oh really, tell
It's
me
like
about...
a Big Short. They're like, this is my quant. And it's like the guy who you just don't talk.
Yeah.
Do not talk to him.
Yeah, no, the quant would be like, oh, he's Asian, and that was a qualification. Like for this guy, it'd be like, look at him, and
there's a few. I would say there are a few.
There's no others really.
Okay.
A lot of these digital guys are weirdos.
Here's one.
Let's be real.
Here's,
I don't care for a lot of the digital guys. Everyone knows, especially those who work. It's like, oh, here's a digital guy. All right, someone give him a Rubik's cube. He can solve it really fast.
Here's here's one other thing. One other thing I want to say, especially for like young people who are coming up in their careers, because you have various inflection points when you're young and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in your life and what's my next thing and where does this position me to leapfrog to the next thing or whatever, right? And like everybody has that anxiety as they're coming up in their career. And once I got on the consulting side and I worked with a bunch of different campaigns and things and different consultants and people, what I appreciated about John and Josh is not only that I liked them, but that there was a professional integrity to the way that these guys operated that I really gravitated towards. And, we worked together in 2014, we started a consulting firm, ourselves in Cavalry. And my one piece of advice to every young person out there, who's looking to go out on their own or find people who they'd like to work with, is find people who you want to learn from. Find people who can add value to your life in an area you're deficient or you don't know about, and that you can make them better and they can make you better. And the sum will always be greater than the parts in a professional relationship in that way. And that's the way we've always worked together.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a professional integrity to it where you could see Duncan coming out of a world that after he sort of departed into our world, you could see a real lack of integrity in a lot of different ways. Like scam packs became a big thing then, right? A lot of people that were contemporaries of his in the early days of the internet like got seduced by that because you could go out and try to raise money for something that actually didn't exist, but the cause was sufficient enough where people wanted to contribute money to it, and they just kept doing it over and over again. And like Duncan was allergic to that idea. If you're not providing the value that you said you were soliciting their money for, you're a crook. And like, this is the early days of the internet when this is just becoming a big part of American politics, and you could watch the integrity behind what it is that he was doing. And, you could look at some of these things where like, wow, these people are raising a ton of money. And he's like, yeah, I'll tell you why they're raising a lot of money. And then you explain it, and you realize it's all kind of a scam.
Let's dig through the FEC report.
So this guy had just like incredible integrity about him in an era where there wasn't a lot to go around.
Right.
And then the other piece of it is, fucking guy is smart as shit.
Right.
Which is, it has nothing to do with the internet. Like you can ask him about English lit.
Human Google machine.
Yeah. And so like, and that was kind of the professional development, how we ultimately ended up to be doing what we're doing is that like you push the button on Duncan and he's like, well, let me explain it for you. And like, we've been around a lot of smart people. So like if he's blowing up our skirt, that's pretty fucking smart.
I can't take credit for that. I credit Dale Duncan.
Dale Duncan. Yeah. And we credit Dale. We don't credit you for this.
That's my father, for those who don't know.
It's Dale Duncan. No question about it. Likes the likes.
Yeah, he's an incredible man.
Yeah, he's just such a great individual. Yeah. I mean, I've just come to fall in love with your family and everything else. And then we meet this guy.
So, real quick, can I get question 1 up on the screen again? So the first sentence is, will you please give us a short bio on all the guys? So 27 minutes later, I will be more than happy to answer the question as asked. So I started.
No, you're not doing it.
No.
That's not what we're doing here.
This is Christmas Day for
This
crying
is
out
Christmas
loud.
Day. People want to know a little bit about the fellas.
It's about brotherhood.
Yeah, dude.
So it's about Q&A. So question answered. So I started off my professional career at a hedge fund in New York City. A friend ran for office in New York City. I started off helping out, but then I eventually came to just take the reins of the whole thing. We had a tremendous amount of success there. And slowly, bit by bit, essentially, I was advising, running the field program running the data for every Republican candidate on the island of Manhattan very quickly. I was shocked by how quickly that happened. But I eventually started having these like off-the-record meetings in New York City and in D.C. where I would invite operatives.
See, you're shortchanging yourself on all of this. I mean, look, yes, that's your resume.
Yeah, and I was asked, will you please give us a short bio?
Stop. That's your resume.
And Heather, I tried.
Here's the Heather, you have to bear with us. But the genius of Comfortably Smug is that its background in finance happened right about the time that the entire world economy collapsed.
And it's also insane to think, and we learned this, that like while I was sitting at like a Bloomberg terminal watching the economy is like we had
wealth evaporate.
We had managing directors going to ATMs and pulling cash and telling us that like, well, we don't know if I'll be able to do that tomorrow. And I was like,
that feels sticky.
This is a pretty tough place to be. And you were.
What about my 401k match?
I mean, it's like it's all gone. Like you're not. We'd already come to terms with like
401k is now zero.
Right. Ruined.
I remember the index for our TSB funds, which were like the Senate version of a 401k, were indexed to Lehman Brothers.
Yeah,
and I look up at the screen, and it's like Lehman Brothers collapses. It's no longer
zero.
And I'm looking at my 401k, being like, "Hey, it's indexed to that thing."
And Smug's at the Bloomberg terminal, and you have to watch Hank Paulson walk in and out of the room.
Yeah, he's in the room at the same time.
Yeah, no, I mean that was literally the thing we've reminisced about a lot is that like Ashbrook and I's job was to try to corral press during an inherently chaotic time.
Like I remember when the vote went down in Congress, and we in the office screamed. We're like, they really do not get it. They don't understand that we will not have an economy next week. We will not have transactions working at stores next week. Meanwhile, you're in the building being like, how does this happen?
I remember our policy guy, Rohit, was running back and forth between the speaker's office where all the politicians had sort of come around a conference room table in Nancy Pelosi's office with Ben Bernanke, who was the Fed chair at the time. And then Paulson,
who was the Treasury Secretary
who was the Treasury Secretary, was in a office by himself in a conference room. I think it was the Boehner Suite or like an extension of it. And our job was to basically try to facilitate through a sea of press a back and forth between what Paulson was working on and what these people were talking about as the time is ticking. And Bernanke at the time said, if you don't get this done by Monday, you have no economy.
Yep.
And I walk in, and I'll never forget one of our policy guys, good friend of the program, is standing there, arms crossed, like just shaking his head. And I look in, and I'm like, oh, my God. And this is a scary time. And I take a step forward, and I look, and Hank Paulson is sitting there in a shirt, no ties off, the coat's off. The shirt's rolled up above both elbows. He's sweating like a whore in church. And he's handwriting what his directive was, which is, remember how dumb this is, but they were like, the bill should be 1 page, as if the page numbers mattered to save the American economy. But remember that was the thing at the time. They were like, it can't be complicated. It needs to be 1 page. So he's handwriting this thing and then handing it to the policy staff being like, does this do it? And then they'd have to run over it. And I remember standing there thinking like, this is the end. This is way scarier than 9/11.
I mean, like people bring up 08 all the time, and they're like, "Is this another 08? Is this a bubble?" Like, people have short memories.
They do.
That was like nothing anyone has ever seen, and God willing, will ever see again, because it really was. You saw the cliff, and it was over.
Yeah, totally. But the combination of your experience in that era, and then getting into campaign politics in a very blue place, like you got to be pretty creative to figure out how to get attention for things. And like you'd started working on a whole bunch of different things that are exploring the recesses of the online culture. And at some point in your resume, Comfortably Smug arises. And when it does, I cannot emphasize enough to the people who are listening how quickly it took over conservative politics. Like Twitter was at a very nascent stage, and there was only a few like big accounts, and there was only one that drove a conservative conversation in any real way because it had levity, it had irreverence.
It's like that scene in Scarface when "Push It to a Limit" starts playing, and it's like da 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 da. Like that's what it was like when Comfortably Smug hit the timeline.
Only 58% of Americans today say they're proud to be American, the lowest number ever recorded. That's not just sad, it is very dangerous, because if we forget what makes America special, we risk losing it. That's why Americans for Prosperity is launching the One Small Step campaign, a bold nationwide initiative to reconnect Americans with our founding principles that sparked unparalleled innovation and prosperity. It's not just a celebration, it's a call to action. Through the 250,000 Steps for Freedom Challenge, AFP is partnering with the grassroots in all 50 states to take meaningful steps that defend freedom and advance opportunity. Call your representative, attend a local event, knock on a door, talk to your neighbors. Every single step counts, and every step moves us closer to a more perfect union. Go to takeonesmallstep.com to learn more, then join the challenge at afpvolunteer.com.
So, like, as you start this thing, like, do you get it at that point, or are you just having fun?
So that's the thing is, even the genesis of the name, so it's a Pink Floyd Comfortably Numb reference, but I'm still at the hedge fund when I started this account. And one of the things when you're at the hedge fund is like, if I were to tweet like, I don't like Diet Coke, and then an investor could be like, but your fund is long Coca-Cola. Are you like trying to do it? So I had to have it like completely separated from me as a person, of like, it's a fake entity, Comfortably Smug, a person who doesn't even exist, and my opinions of what I'm thinking. So that's actually the genesis of where it came from. And then like, when I really started engaging in politics, one of the things, I mean, it's like what we've said on the show, is that like so few conservatives thought, hey, let's try to be funny about it. Even if it's gallows humor, even if things are dire, you got to find a way to laugh. And very quickly, like a lot of like operatives in the know would be like, hey, this is hilarious. And also this exchange of information, if they'd be like, no journo is willing to run with this information. We found this out about a Dem. Could you put this out there? And I'd be like, sure.
No problem.
And
I'd put that out there.
sometimes it's coming from another Dem.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like when there was like a Democrat primary, they'd be like, hey, would you put this out there? Because they'll be like, oh no, it's the evil Republicans. I was like, if you want me to hit a Dem with some info, I'm more than happy to. So like it took off.
So Smug is a journo, and I feel like that's part of
What was so amazing about this is that we started doing our job at beginning in that kind of 2014 cycle, in that all of news and information was broken on Twitter far before their websites and all of the things could ever deal with it. And so it became an important echo system to us. And so we started watching what Smug was up to, laughing our asses off. But because we had the same sense of humor. And at the time, a whole bunch of people thought I was you.
And occasionally ChatGPT still does. It's the funniest thing.
Because he had the same sense of humor, the irreverent sense of you making fun of stuff that we found hilarious. And so this kind of went back and forth with like a couple of cycles as we're sharing information. I think we DM a couple of times or whatever. And then occasionally, as you were saying, you have these happy hours that you started to organize, because journalists found the same kind of power that we did in the operative world, in that if you could get a relationship with these big accounts and have a serious like give and take, the boost that you would get online for what they were reporting was massive. And this guy had the biggest account of anybody. And so you would organize these things in New York and DC.
And the DC one of them that I organized, I was like, okay, these guys are hilarious. Like what you guys have been doing, like massacring Democrats, because that was still an era when you guys were operating when the 99% of Republicans were still stuffy about it.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, let's run with Cocaine Mitch. Or like, what rhymes with Grimes? You know, like no one tried that. And it was like a meme song about it. Like no one's doing this. So, so I invite these guys to a DC happy hour, and right off the bat, I mean, we hit it off. Where it was just like it was like I'd known these guys for 20 years. We're throwing back drinks, having a great time. And coincidentally enough, your first son, Duncan, is born that night. So Duncan
That
dips.
night.
He's like, my wife's about to deliver. I'm going with, like, I was like,
Just stumbling
This is a
sideways out for the birth of his son.
this is a fortuitous beginning.
I drank some coffee.
Yeah, you had to have.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to get through it.
But it was a fortuitous start to what we have here.
Yeah, I mean it was a line of demarcation, and of course we had the same kind of idea that ultimately we exchanged ideas of the same exact plan on what we wanted to do to make it Ruthless. And look, I think a big part of it is in from meeting Smug and Smug meeting all of us, is that we understood each other in a way that you know, when you just like every once in a while run into somebody that feels like you've known them for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you start laughing about the same things, and you notice the same things, and you have different perspectives on it, but it's, you know, it kind of works. And then COVID hit,
Yeah.
where we were all locked in our homes. And you were in New York City at the time. We were in D.C. Both places wouldn't let you leave the fucking house. Like, we wanted to go to work, we couldn't. They literally locked down the whole place, so we would start a happy hour at the end of every day by Zoom.
By Zoom.
Just to recover what was left of our mental health throughout the course of the day. And we would bet on horse racing.
Because, like, that was a sport that was still happening. Amazing.
Yeah, because it was the only one that was on television. And we'd pour a bourbon and talk shit. And we were like, you know what we were talking about with a media company? I think this is it. And that's what we've got. And that's what we've got. So, you know, look, I mean, that is the full panoply. I can tell you, I grew up in Minnesota. I saw my first campaign, which is probably the most interesting part of my entire story. I came out for an internship on 9/11, like 3 weeks before 9/11.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I was the furthest thing from a college Republican. Furthest thing. Not particularly political. My family was interested in politics. I consumed a ton of news when I was young, but I wasn't like an advocate in any real way. I just want to get drunk and bang
you started
girls.
you started your internship. You're at the Capitol Hill when 9/11 happens, and like they're evacuating everything. And I remember like the chaos of that day. You were there for that.
Yeah, so I was up
God.
I was a few blocks from where we are right now. I wasn't actually in the Capitol, but
They evacuated it was like, where do you go?
We were
Because
running
they're
up
flying into
Connecticut.
like Pentagon, and they were like, the next one might be headed for the White House. The next one might be headed for the Capitol. Like,
yeah, I mean, I remember standing on the top of a building and looking out and seeing the Pentagon on fire, and then they evacuated us, and we got down, and nobody was going to take the subway at that point. So everybody's just running straight up Connecticut, and I was like, Jesus, what? I mean, I'm 20 years old. I don't know what the hell I'm
it's
doing.
like the end of the world.
So, you know, all of that it goes into my first campaign, because I decide through that whole experience, I'm like, nah, this is like, I'm engaged now. This is like a formative experience where I can understand and want to be a part of something. And so I went to work on a campaign in Minnesota for a home state guy, Norm Coleman, which was a really frustrating campaign. It's super frustrating. You go to college and they're like, hey, pound rebar into frozen earth.
Yeah.
And put up a yard sign. And I'm like, Jesus, this is terrible.
Yeah, it's just you in a pickup truck and a bunch of rebar.
That's it, right? But I figured, I was like, look, if I can do this better than everybody else, somebody will recognize it.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
so I worked all
It's a
day
good
and night
attitude.
doing that stuff, like putting up the signs and going to talk to random strangers and delivering, like manning the parades and all that stuff. Because again, it wasn't like I enjoyed any of it. I didn't. I hated every single
campaigns,
second.
field builds integrity.
It does, but
Knocking doors gives you that backbone.
Right.
And
I
some
always
people,
trust people who've done field.
some people were built for it. I really wasn't. I had to force it. You know what I mean? But I knew that if I did it better than anybody else, that like it would like people would have to recognize it.
It's because the policy kids will show up to the phone bank and like, I'm ready to make calls. Get your ass out knocking doors. I'm policy.
and it's like 5 degrees, by the way.
Yeah.
Why are the policy people getting
They
so
deserve
many?
it.
They're
Bro,
getting
they would
crushed.
show up and they'd be like, I'm ready to phone bank. And I'm like, I like having the elderly folks phone bank. Go knock some goddamn doors.
So, but that first campaign, the incumbent senator, a guy named Paul Wellstone, died 13 days before the election in a plane crash. I was with him the previous week at a debate with Norm Coleman, where in the area that I was staffing, got to know him and his staffer, who ultimately also perished
Oh, my God.
in the thing. And like it all of a sudden gets real for somebody, for a young kid at that point, where it's like, you know, you didn't sign up for a blood sport. It's not like you signed up to be a Marine or something like Wolf, where you know what it is that you're getting yourself into, like all of a sudden this got super real for me. And, you know, over the course of 13 days, you have all kinds of crazy stuff, and Coleman ends up winning the damn thing. Someday I'll get into the larger story about that, which was fantastic. But that's how I get to DC. But I don't know what I'm doing. Let's do some policy stuff. I hate it. Healthcare policy, believe it or not. And like it was awful, and I couldn't figure out why nobody was talking about the things that were going to happen. Everybody was talking about the things that were never going to happen. I was like, the Senate sucks. I got to get out of here. And
clip that. Senate sucks.
Yeah.
Josh Holmes.
I was like, I didn't get it. Really didn't get it. And then I went back on the campaign trail, ended up getting linked up with the RNC when Ken Mellman, fresh off of a victory for President Bush in 2004, was running the joint. And they asked me if do you write speeches? I'd never written a fucking speech in my entire life, not a word of a speech.
Could have fooled everybody.
And I was like, yes, I do. With total confidence. Yes, I am a speechwriter.
That's a job interview tip from Josh Holmes to all the young folks out there.
Yeah. Well, it lasted about 2 months, and they were like, you suck. You don't know anything. Maybe he's better at like the press thing.
Probably because you were writing interesting stuff. And they weren't, what they wanted was talking points that fit what everybody else in the administration was saying, rather than something interesting.
It was fairly formulaic in that era. I'm not really built for that.
Right.
You know, it was like, we said this and those people said that. It's like those contrast ads that you see, those terrible political ads where it's like,
this stands out and that's bad.
Yeah.
Like that was the era.
That was the era.
They just.
But anyway, so it didn't work, and then I started doing the comms, and then ended up, Mellman introduced me to McConnell, which is how I met Johnny, and we did all of that until we got to cavalry, and you know, I think from 2011, 12 through 2020, the larger part of my responsibility was trying to elect as many Senate Republicans as I could, and trying to create the conditions as best I could to try to get as many good candidates going, recruiting people, but also trying to create messaging and whatnot that was advantageous. And of course, we got over the finish line in 2014, which is kind of like the highlight of my backdrop, which is a part of all of our histories, really. And then thought we would parlay everything we learned into this larger discussion, and it's like a weird thing to be in this line of work now. I mean, it's a fun turn of events to be on this end of the microphone after so much on the other end. And I realized that we only got to one question. I do. But I feel like we owed it to people to give a full. We haven't done it. I mean, we signed a Fox deal and immediately just continued, and nobody who would have joined us has really gotten that update.
Yeah. We didn't just like pick up some microphones and say, we have some thoughts on politics in America.
Right.
It's informed by many years of having actually done the thing. And the way I always describe it to people is what I love about watching something like, NFL football is seeing Troy Aikman there, like a guy who actually played the sport, and he was a quarterback, and so he can provide you an analysis into the discourse of watching a game that's instructive in a way that's different than a guy who does television for a living. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there's room in the ecosystem of all of conservative media and commentating for all of it. But I think that's what motivates me and many of us to get involved.
A perfect example of that is like you wonder a couple of years ago why I got so worked up about the idea that you don't have a role to choose candidates that represent your party in elections throughout the country. I think Rick Scott was the NRSC chairman at the time, and they were basically like, nope, it's not the role. We don't do any of that. We'll let everybody decide and let the chips fall where they may. The reason for that is the Troy Aikman type experience, which is I did that. I watched it in 2010. I watched it in 2012. And when I got my hands in it, we changed the business model in 2014. It was the first time in 8 years that Republicans actually fucking won anything. Yep. And so it wasn't like an ideological opinion.
And then also, as we explained on the show, what that expertise brings you is that the Democrats were like, well, that leaves a vacuum for us to try to help the worst person in the Republican primary win so then we can beat him in the general.
Right. I mean, so that's just like, that's one little piece, but it's in everything we do.
It's the knowledge that's been gained that then is a gift to you, dear listener.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's the backdrop of who we are. And listen, I know we've got dozens of questions. We're going to drum through a bunch of them in the next couple of deals that we do. But we felt an obligation to do an extended version on this very question. More after this.
Fellas, that was an incredible opener. I feel like people learned a little bit more about us. They may not have already known, but we have some more questions to get to today. One in particular I'd like to read to you guys comes from Ford Baker. Ford writes, "The biggest development in the show is the on-again, off-again status of the Josh Holmes porn stash.
Amazing.
My question is, what precedes the shave? An intervention from the rest of the crew? A cease and desist from Fox or Mrs. Holmes returning from a trip to her mother's? Question 2, can I get it introduced by the voice?" There you go, Ford.
God, you got the whole thing. First of all, I'm a man.
I want to say I not only endorse it, it is so great.
He likes
when you
it.
bring it because it's just like, here's DGAF Holmes. And like we're gonna get some like double barrel takes because he's already in the zone.
Yeah.
It kind of look. I like screwing around with that, but I do have a little bit of an ulterior motive, at least lately, and then I just want to see how far I can get away with something before somebody says something, and like part of that is my wife, who fucking hates it. I mean, she's like,
that's always the best reason to do something.
yeah, she's like, what is that? And I did it for like a Christmas picture this year, and she was just horrified. Hated every minute. She's like, you need to shave that thing every day. She's like, you need to shave. That's horrible. But then also, I was kind of curious about the new Fox contract.
Yeah, what could you get away with?
Well, because I always used to shave every time I would go on Fox, every time, just because I was like, I would respect.
I
for
forgot
Fox
about
and
that.
do whatever.
We're doing all those. You're doing all these hits.
Yeah, and I was like,
Brett Bear's like, what the fuck is on your face?
no, totally. But I wanted to figure out whether or not there was a system in place, some kind of a quality control
Like
measure.
you thought maybe you'd get an email?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where somebody would be like, dude, what is that?
Well, isn't it also the truth that
Turns out there's not.
Listen,
Brett's like, and tonight we bring you Dirk Diggler. Let's hear it, Boogie Nights. What's your thoughts on that?
Right.
Isn't it also the truth that every once in a while, when you have the mustache, people will come up to you on the street and ask if they can buy a reverse mortgage from you?
Tom Selleck.
Yeah, and I'm happy to sell them. No, listen, I think it goes a long way. I love it. I would keep it.
What I like about it is when it goes a week too long and you start to look like Jack Sparrow from Pirate of the Caribbean.
That's funny.
It's very funny when you got like the soul patch and then also the mustache.
Yeah.
It's really something. And I also remember, do you remember like the first year when we did Movember?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
The best story about that is Smash, who couldn't fucking grow, and he
poor
looked like a...
Smash,
No,
looked like a pedophile.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
No, honestly, you
guy.
would have registered him and kept him 50 yards from
You
his
would
school.
have. I mean, if I try to grow facial hair, it just doesn't work. It's
doesn't
not in the
work.
genetics.
Yeah, well, if
Yeah.
I try, it's tougher to board a plane. So
Especially this in these trying times.
yeah, in these trying times.
It's very, very funny.
I love the question. All right, so the next question comes from Eric Leach. Eric writes, where did Grum from Progrum come from?
Yes, I love
It's
this
a great,
question.
great question.
And it's complicated because it in part, it is our appreciation of affectations around this country. We've always had a great appreciation for different regional dialects.
Tuesday, Thursday.
Right. And I mean, I worked with a guy who, this like Southern guy, who would always say, what kind of call? We got a call on Thursday? Is it Monday call? What is it, Tuesday call? And I've just adopted it. It's just because I was like, I can't believe somebody says D at the end of the
What's
day.
funny, so for the first time, no one's spoiled this for me. I started watching that series Deadwood, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so like
that's
in one of
good.
the first episodes, they have this like family of settlers from Minnesota who are deciding to go back, and they try talking to them, and they're like, going back to Minnesota. And I was like, so it never changed. Everyone's still. I was like, when we go hang out with Holmes buddies, when we go to Minnesota, everyone's still to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And the first thing I was like, so that's where Progrum and all this. It's this Midwest affectation.
It is. No, and we appreciate all of them. But in terms of Progrum, it's also just it's weird, right? I mean, it's different. It's not program. It's all. And the second is the college football element to it, where you get those Southern SEC schools that since I was a child refer to their football team as a program, always. And like there's a big sports influence.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you guys like immediately were all over the idea. I mean, I don't even think we had to say anything about it. I think it was just like it's immediately a
Well,
program.
and I think that's sort of the larger point here is we can't really correct it, and we do Program, we do Tuesday, Thursday. I'm sure we do like 10 or 20 other ones too.
Yeah.
But in any friend group, when you're around each other for so long, you create inside jokes that you forget are inside jokes.
Oh, totally.
You know?
You just speak that way.
Yeah, and you just do it.
And also, to a certain extent, it's like a shibboleth at this point. Like, especially when we go out and we do shows and we see people and they refer to it as a program, like, oh, you're an OG.
Yeah, like you get it.
You know.
Yeah, you get it. And then we had like people try to steal it.
Yep.
They have tried to steal it. You know, there's also another element you didn't mention, and we did work in the Senate for quite a while, and there were a handful of senators who are no longer with us who would take the floor and they would make speeches like nobody makes today, with accents that nobody has today. And the way that they would talk is something that we would just constantly try to replicate and do impressions of in the office all day long. Like the perfect example of this is a guy named John Warner.
Oh.
He's a moderate Republican from Virginia. And this guy, when he took the floor, everybody just stopped and listened because you knew that he was going to say something completely outrageous with a straight face. And everyone's mesmerized because you're like, how does anybody still talk like this? It's not 1873.
It's like a genteel Southern aristocrat.
Exactly.
Well, and he had the rhetorical gifts to land him Elizabeth Taylor in her prime.
Right.
I mean, this man could talk
That's
his
gifted
way.
gab.
Right.
Yeah, he could talk his way in and out of just about
Right.
anything.
He's a man worth studying.
He really is. Oh my gosh, you're right. That is definitely a component.
And also we've often talked about how they give eulogies. If you're a senator, and Warner is one of them, honestly, Joe Biden was one of them. These guys would give eulogies, and they would turn them into a speech about
This
themselves.
guy's like, Joe Biden's so good at talking.
No,
Well,
dude, back in the day it was hilarious.
Yeah,
No,
before he was
He's never
president.
funny. I was always against him.
It was very.
Okay.
It was always against him. I mean, of course, but like the point that he's making is a very good one, which was we used to have an inside joke in the Senate about only the upper echelon of senators, and this was back in the day when it's not like you get like a 40-year-old senator. Like these people were the old school kind of like the forefathers envisioned of like.
Right, like their first vote was on Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then we're there, and it's like, whoa.
If you
what?
offered them a powdered wig, they'd wear it.
Oh,
Right.
100%. 100%. They were,
Yeah.
what's that? You know, I mean, they were just like old school. But they would do like incredibly old school things, discuss things in a way that was just completely foreign to us.
And I remember a eulogy that Joe Biden gave for this guy. He was a former senator from New England, and I wish I could remember his name. Maybe you can remember his name. But he stood there in the small church that looked like the church where the colonists gathered to protest the British back in the day. I mean, this looked like a very old church, and Joe Biden is standing in the pulpit, and he is making a eulogy about this guy, and the entire speech was about how that guy played a role in my greatness.
No, for real. He
I'm
did
not kidding
He
you.
did the same thing with Jesse Helms. He eulogized Jesse Helms.
Yeah.
And it was like, and we've all come to know we had famous disagreements. I disagree on many things. like civil rights, like at his own funeral.
Are you
Right, yeah,
serious,
yeah,
bro?
No. But then he would be like, but we've come because there was common ground, and he championed the things that I was the champion of.
Yeah.
This is why.
And so therefore, he was a
you-
great man.
Right.
You never,
Yeah,
you
that's
never
exactly
give
what it
Democrats
is.
an inch, bro. Like at a funeral for you. Like
Yeah.
you don't ever try to be bipartisan. Don't
No,
ever.
No, I don't want any Democrats eulogizing
Nope.
me. I know exactly how that
Yep,
ends.
I know what they'll do.
Yeah, particularly ones from the Senate. All right, so last question here. Like, do you fellas still have day jobs, or you do the show full time? We do still have day jobs. Our day jobs they're interesting. I mean, we do this honestly because it's fun, and it's been a great release, and getting to know all of you, and you all getting to know a little bit about us, and being able to talk about all of it. It's not because we have just a lot of extra time. Like, we don't. Our day jobs are pretty serious, and we got a bunch of clients. We do comms, we do digital, we do some strategy stuff with companies that are around the world trying to figure out, best way to market whatever it is that they're working on, which is fun for us, and we really enjoy it a lot. And honestly, it keeps you mentally
In the game.
acute. It's not just outside of politics. You actually get for people who do stuff, not just talk about stuff, but do stuff. It keeps us, I think, a little bit more in touch with an awful lot of that, and a little bit about what you guys are dealing with on a day-to-day basis as you're listening to this. And so, yes, we're very busy.
But it's a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with your buddies. And what you hear every single time we do a show is exactly what we'd be talking about if we did not have microphones on. So, I mean, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like, this is just us hanging out, and that's honestly our entire show.
Well, speaking of our entire show, I think we did it here, fellas. This has been a fun little thing. Smug, we did it.
Yeah, absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to
Christmas.
all the minions. This is just part 1 of our Q&A. We will have a part 2. Enjoy this day with your families. Merry Christmas, and we will see you next time. Stay ruthless.